boys and girls, it's Miss Bissell. We are continuing our math. We're actually building on all of our lessons from topic 14 as we move into topic 15. We have basically been working with the coordinate plane and ordered pairs, and the last two lessons we did some graphing on quadrant 1, which tended to look more like number line problems. So as we work through topic 15, we need to think about how can number patterns be analyzed and graphed, and how can the number patterns and graphs be used to solve problems. So that sounds very much like we did our last two lessons. As a matter of fact, go ahead and grab a pencil and your book, and we're just going to take a peek at the essential question on page 594. So just a reminder, the essential question basically guides us through what we're going to be doing in the lesson, and then it will give us a good idea if we can answer it at the end of the lesson if we are on the right path to learning the concept. So our question is, how can you solve problems that include numerical patterns? So I'm actually going to use the example on page 593 to teach the lesson today. All right, so we have a scenario where Emma has $100 in her savings account. George, or it could be pronounced Jorge, has $50 in his savings account. They each put $10 in their accounts at the end of each week. Complete the tables to see how much money each of them has saved after 5 weeks. What patterns do you notice? So we have a couple things going on here. Let's start with going back through and looking at the scenario. So Emma starts with 100 in her account, and George starts with 50. Okay, so I'm looking at the tables. That's already been plugged in for us, those values. All right, they each put $10 in their accounts each week. So I'm going to put a little plus 10 for both of them, because I know from the scenario that they're both putting $10 away each week. We're going to complete the tables, and then we will tackle the question. All right, so if we add $10 to 100, we'd have 110, add another 10, 120. So we're just adding $10 each week. This is on Emma. So we're done with Emma with 150. All right, George, we're going to add 10 each week. All right, so we're working on his table. All right, now we finished the tables. What patterns do you notice? All right, well, one thing that's quite evident is I noticed that we're adding $10 to the prior week's savings each week, right? So each week, add $10 to the prior week's savings for both. I'm going to do E for Emma and J for George. All right, so that's one thing we noticed, okay? Now, I don't know if you remember, but at the end of topic 14, we started talking about relationships between the X and the Y value. So let's talk about the relationship between Emma and George. Look and see if there's anything you notice. So Emma, 150, George. At the end of week 1, Emma has 110, George has 60. At the end of week 2, Emma has 120, George has 70, and all the way down. And see if you notice anything. All right, what I notice is that Emma always has more money, and I notice that no matter what week we're at or even at the start, Emma always has $50 more than George. So that is one thing I noticed, that Emma always has $50 more than George. Or you could write that George always has $50 less than Emma. Either way you want to do it. And the fifth grade girl reminds us that when we look for relationships, we're looking to see what is alike and what is different in the two tables. Okay. So what I notice alike is that the pattern of add $10 per week is constant for both children. But what I notice is different is that George always has $50 less than Emma, or you could say Emma always has $50 more than George. Okay. So the question at the look back at the bottom of the page extends on this problem, and it says that if the savings patterns continue, will George ever have as much saved as Emma? Explain. All right, so think about that. They both start with a different amount. They both earn the same amount each week. So no, since Emma started with more money in her account and they both save the same amount each week, then Emma's account is always going to be greater. Okay, so let's write that down. The answer is no, and that is because Emma started with more money. So let's get that part of the explanation jotted down. So since Emma started with more money, in her account, and they both save the same amount each week, Emma's account will always be greater. And how much greater will it be? We could even be more specific. We've already identified that relationship. Emma's account will always be $50 greater than George's account. Okay? So we do write in math when we have to explain ourselves. And I notice that it's always helpful for me to explain it to myself out loud than to write it and make sure that what I'm writing is very clear. So you guys saw how when I talked about this, I tried to rewrite what I was thinking, and I even elaborated a little more when I said, instead of what I said originally, which was Emma's account will always be greater, I elaborated and said Emma's account will always be $50 greater than George's account. All right, so pause this video. Make sure your book on page 593 is filled out. If you need to stop and rewind to make sure you understand how we work this problem, then make sure you do that, because what we just did was at the top of the page, we followed the scenario to create tables with patterns in them. Then we analyzed the numerical patterns that we had created in the tables. Luckily, part of the tables had already been made for us. So, that's kind of our helper at the beginning of this chapter, this topic. All right. And then make sure you understand the different pattern and relationships that I talked about. And then make sure that this explanation of why Emma always has more than George makes sense. Okay. So pause that if you need to. All right. On the next page, the visual learning is the next example problem, and you can just look through with me. This one's already been worked out, so look to see how this is similar to what we just did. Lindsay has a sage plant that is 3 5/10 inches tall. She also has a rosemary plant that is 5 2/10 inches tall. Both plants grow 1 5/10 inches taller each week. How tall will the plants be after 5 weeks? And then the question is, what is the relationship between the heights of the plants? So the little fifth grade helper reminds us that you can create tables to help identify relationships between corresponding terms in the number sequences. So there's some vocabulary. We're going to touch on that. So the number sequences are what we have going on in the tables. All right. We've got the start that they gave us, 3 5/10 inches for the sage and 5 2/10 inches for the rosemary. All right. The rule is we're going to add 1 5/10 inches each week. So since we haven't worked with decimals, this one would have been one we would have used a calculator on. The table's been filled out for us. So the rule is plus 1 5/10 inches for both types of plants. Okay. When we get done, the corresponding terms are right here. At the end of the 5th week, we have a sage plant that's 11 inches tall and a rosemary plant that is 12 7/10 of an inch tall. So each of these start and weeks are a term, and the corresponding terms are the same. So the start in each, or week 2 in each table, or week 4, any of those that correspond. So it has to be the same data compared. All right. And the question was, what is the relationship between the heights of the plants? And what we noticed is if we could subtract that, the rosemary plant is always going to be 1 7/10 inches taller than the sage. And we know that because we can take their beginning heights. They start at the 5 2/10. This rosemary, sage starts at 3 5/10. If we subtract, they start with this 1 7/10 difference. So since they're both adding the same height each week, there's always going to be that 1 7/10 inch difference. And using a calculator, you could subtract each of the corresponding terms and see it. Okay. All right, let's move on and let's do one more together. You know what? You might want to get a calculator out, okay? And I say that because we're dealing with decimals and we haven't really worked with decimals. Some of you have some prior knowledge from 4th grade, but I don't mind if you get the little calculator out that I gave each of you. It's just the 4 function. Make sure you put the decimal in where it needs to go. All right, so this problem is on page 595. We're going to use the rule add 50 cents to help us. All right, so the rule is add 50 cents. Tim and Jill each have a piggy bank. Tim starts with $1.25 in his piggy bank and puts 50 cents in each week. All right, Jill starts with $2.75 in her piggy bank, and she also puts 50 cents in each week. So we're going to complete the table to show how much money each has saved after 5 weeks. So we can't analyze or solve the problem until we take care of step 1, which is complete the corresponding terms data. So the rule is add 50 cents, and each person is adding 50 cents. So $1.25 plus 50 cents is $1.75. Using your calculator, another 50 cents would be $2.25. Adding 50 cents to $2.25 would be $2.75. Adding 50 cents to $2.75 would be $3.25. And adding 50 cents to $3.25 would be $3.75. All right, Jill, we're going to add 50 cents each time. So if you add 50 cents to $2.75, you're going to get $3.25. Adding 50 cents, you get $3.75. Adding 50 cents, you get $4.25. Some of you can probably do this in your head because you're good with money and quarters. $5.25, if you add 50 cents, you get, $4.25. If you add 50 cents, you get $4.75. And if you add 50 cents to $4.75, you get $5.25. All right, so we've got the data filled out for the 5 weeks. We followed the directions. We followed the rule of adding 50 cents each week. The beginning amounts were already filled in for us. All right, so the question is, the directions was to fill out the table to show how much money each has saved after 5 weeks. The next thing is, what relationship do you notice between the amount Tim has saved each week and the amount Jill has saved? So we're really looking at what's going on between Tim and Jill. So use your calculator. There's obviously going to be a difference between what they started out with. So if you subtract $1.25 from $2.75, look to see what you get. All right. That's right. You get $1.50 difference. All right. So Jill has $1.50 more. All right. See if that's true here. Subtract $1.75 from $3.25. See if you get a difference of $1.50. Yep. Try it again on this corresponding term on these corresponding terms. Subtract 225 from 375, and you get $1.50. So let's just keep making sure this is true. Take 425 and subtract 275. Yep, $1.50. Put in $4.75 and subtract $3.25, making sure that there's $1.50 difference. And the last one, let's subtract 375 from 525. Yep, definitely is a relationship going on. So what I notice is that Jill always has $1.50 more saved than Tim. So Jill always has $1.50 more saved than Tim. Yes, you could write that Tim always has $1.50 less saved than Jill. That would be also true. All right, so you could start talking about Jill, or you could start with talking about Tim. Either one would be correct. So Jill always has $1.50 more saved than Tim, or you might have seen that Tim always has $1.50 less saved than Jill. All right, so the question is, if Tim and Jill continue saving this way, how much will they have saved after 10 weeks? All right, so what do you guys think? Give you a second. Pause me if you want to work this out on your own. All right. What do you think about this? I am thinking, well, the answer is that Jill is going to have $7.75 and Tim is going to have $6.25. So write that down first, and then I'm going to explain how I got it, and let's see if you use the same method. So Tim would have $6.25 and Jill would have $7.75. Now, what I was thinking about is if I take their starting amount and multiply it times 10. And again, it's decimal, so you're going to have to use your calculator. So I've got mine right here. Okay, so if we take Tim's starting amount, he has $1.25. And if you multiply that times 10, no, I'm sorry, that's not what I did at all. Go back. No. I took 50 cents and multiplied it times 10. So, and it would help if I wrote 50 cents. So 50 cents times 10. All right, so 0.50 times 10. All right, so we get $5. So I am going to add $5 to the starting amount of each person, okay? Because over a 10-week period, they're getting 50 cents saved a week. So 50 cents times 10 means that each child saves $5 in addition to what they started with. So let me just go over here. So Tim started with $1.25. If we add the $5 that he saved over a 10-week period, he's going to get $6.25 saved at the end of 10 weeks. Jill started with $2.75. All right. And over a 10-week period, she saved $5. So that's going to give us $7.75. Okay. You could extend your table. Some of you maybe were thinking, let's go on a piece of paper and let's extend down 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you would just keep adding 50 cents and look at where you were. So some of you might be writing that you decided because you extended your table and you looked at the corresponding terms for week 10. All right, that would also work. Okay. All right, pause the video if you need to. All right, and let's go to page 596. All right. And And you know what? I am actually not going to do page 596. This one deals with fractions. All right. So we are not going to do that. All right. Let's do the last question. At the very bottom, we have the assessment practice, which this is a pretty good question. Jessica has saved $50. She will add $25 to her savings each week. Ron has saved $40 and will add $25 to his savings each week. How much will they have saved at the end of 5 weeks? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little table here. Might as well work in this space. I'm going to have Jessica and Ron, and actually I'm going to do another column for the time. So we've got the start right here. All right. So Jessica has saved $50. Ron has saved $40. So let's start here. All right. The rule is to add 25 each week. And we're working towards week 5. So let's just do the corresponding terms for week 1 here. Week 2, we're going to go there. 3, 4, and 5. So these are different terms. All right. If we add 25, then after 1 week, Jessica will have $75. If we add another 25, after 2 weeks, she'll have $100. After 3 weeks, she'll have $125. After 4, she'll have $150. After 5 weeks, she'll have $175. All right, let's knock out Ron. $40 plus 25 is going to give us $65 at the end of the first week. Adding 25, he's going to have $90 after 2 weeks. Add 25, what's that, $115 after 3 weeks. Adding 25, that's going to give him $140 after 4 weeks. And after 5 weeks, add 25, we're going to get $165. So we're looking to see how much they will have saved after 5 weeks. Here's our corresponding terms. So Jessica would have $175, Ron $165. So that's going to correspond with answer C. All right. Which of the statements is true? All right. Jessica always has saved 25 more than Ron. I'm thinking that is not true. She starts out with $10 more than Ron. They save the same amount each week. So I would say, look at it. Jessica always has $10 more than Ron, now that I know what kind of question or what we're comparing. All right. So we could also say Ron always has $10 less than Jessica. So let's move down the answer choices. Jessica has always saved $10 more than Ron. That's true. Oh, that's not true. Ron has not always saved 25 less than Jessica. He's always 10 less. So these are my 2 true statements, looking at the relationship between Jessica and Ron. All right, boys and girls, you have a practice buddy that you're going to be working on. Just make sure that you have those problems worked out in your book that I worked out. When I see you on your next face-to-face day, you should have the same problems worked out in the book that I worked out as examples, okay? And go back to our question. How can you solve numerical or solve problems involving numerical patterns? I hope you saw that we are putting our information into data charts, looking at corresponding terms, following the rule, and then answering our question. Okay, looking at making relationships between 2 different things that have been set up in the data chart. All right, so lesson 15.1 Practice Buddy is your assignment. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.